Hey guys, Nizzy here, and today I'll be showing you how to turn Skyrim into the ultimate real-life simulator using mods. All of the mods will be in the description. Let's begin. Although Skyrim has a lot of lovable companions, they tend to feel a little lifeless from time to time. Immersive Citizens aims to fix this by greatly improving the AI of Skyrim citizens. The amount of changes made is so vast that they could account for an entire video on its own. But in summary, the mod makes people act closer to real-life people who have routines, habits, and self-preservation, rather than video game characters whose lives revolve around the player. They'll take long walks in the wild, spend time with their loved ones, and even visit other cities. On top of this, the mod adds back in 200 cut voice lines, so people will not only act differently, but talk differently too. Yes, Skyrim is home to the Nords, but Skyrim should still have a lot more diversity than what's offered in the vanilla game. Diverse Skyrim adds over 300 new NPCs scattered across the map to make Skyrim feel more lively and diverse. Now you'll see Orc Legionnaires, Khajiit vampires, and a whole lot more unusual combinations that make the game more interesting while remaining lore-friendly. It's not one of the most impactful mods, but it certainly makes the world more interesting. Although Skyrim is an action-adventure game first and foremost, a big reason people play this game is due to its roleplay capabilities. But that being said, Skyrim is quite limited in how we can interact with its world. This becomes obvious with the few ways you can make money in the game. The way most people do it can be boiled down to delving into a dungeon, finding some loot, and then selling said loot. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could be, employed? If this news crossed your mind, then Jobs of Skyrim is the mod for you. It adds 22 unique jobs ranging from a humble courier to a Hall of the Dead worker, and even a guard. Isn't it strange how despite there being better weapons in circulation, bandits always seem to opt for iron or steel? Bandit Economy tries to fix this. Now the weapons you sell to vendors will circulate throughout Skyrim, meaning that you may now find the elven sword you sold to Belethor in the hands of a bandit chief trying to kill you. Despite being told about a civil war going on, we rarely get to see any interactions between the warring factions outside of quests, and it begs the question, is there even a war going on? But Skyrim Battle Aftermath answers this question with a resounding yes, as it adds several aftermaths of battles between the Stormcloaks and the Imperials. The mod has some beautifully made environmental storytelling, with each scene depicting a different set of circumstances that led to the untimely deaths of all involved. All these scenes help emphasize the true cost of the Civil War to Skyrim's people. Skyrim already has many random encounters that you'll come across, but Skyrim is a very old game, and many of us have already seen all the random encounters there are to see. Immersive Worlds Encounters livens up this aspect of the game by adding in over 100 new encounters you'll find during your travels across Skyrim. You'll of course see the typical bandit mugging and broken carriage, but you'll also see things like Forsworn fighting giants, Wisp Mothers appearing out of thin air, and even Night Falmer taking away people to their lair. And best of all, these additions blend seamlessly into the vanilla game. Ever found it strange how you can just stroll your merry way into Imperial camps clad in Stormcloak armor, or how the authorities can instantly spot you trespassing when you're wearing the same clothes they are? Well, Master of Disguise tries to fix this. Like Fallout New Vegas, this mod adds a new disguise mechanic that lets you blend into the crowd. So, as long as you have the armor to suit, you'll be able to loot and scout through restricted areas without resorting to bloodshed. Just remember that disguises work both ways. Walk into a military camp dressed as the enemy and you'll be treated as such. And beware of high-level enemies who'll notice an outsider like yourself. Take a Peek is a newer mod that adds a stealth mechanic inspired by the Dishonored games. By simply sneaking up to a door and holding the crouch button, you can now look through the keyholes of doors. This allows stealth players to plan out their tactics with greater detail, or just lets you be a better creep if you're into that kind of stuff. Either way, it's an awesome little mod that fleshes out the stealth mechanics. For a world as culturally diverse as Skyrim, the people sure do agree on how to make a lock. From chests to doors and jail cells, every lock seems to have been made by the same locksmith. The Security Overhaul mod gives every type of lock a custom model and animation. So now you'll see a unique model that reflects the material the item was made from. No longer will Falmer chests have locks made from steel and brass. There are even specific locks depending on what region of Skyrim you're in. And best of all of these models are beautifully crafted and in tandem with their animations. If you're anything like me, then you're probably bored of Skyrim's wildlife by now. Seeing a deer run away from you for the quintillionth time is not as exciting as it used to be. I don't even know if it was exciting to begin with. Anyway, realistic animals and predators will quite literally breathe new life into the game by redoing all the AI to make the various animals act more realistically. Animals that wouldn't attack you immediately in real life no longer do so in Skyrim. However, some other animals have become more aggressive and are even able to track your scent. On top of the new AI, the mod also adds a handful of new animals, like animal cubs and house spiders. All of these additions give you plenty more to do with Skyrim's wildlife, allowing you to befriend them or turn them into your next meal. Having countless different characters all going on the same journey in different ways is what makes Skyrim so replayable and fun. But I won't be the first to admit that the unskippable introduction is an absolute pain to sit through after a few save files. But with Alternative Start, you'll no longer have to watch Helgen burn down for the 900th time. Instead, you'll get to choose between several different backgrounds for the Dragonborn before they feel their call for adventure. Were you an outsider who just arrived at the Windhelm docks, a member of the Forsworn, or a property owner? The choice is yours, and with a ton of different options, you'll be hard-pressed to not find an appealing backstory. There are even ones that are race-specific. You could be a part of the traveling Khajiit merchants, an Alakir warrior from Hammerfell, and even a Thalmor agent. Frostfall is one of the most iconic mods for Skyrim, and for good reason. On the surface, Frostfall is merely another survival mod that turns Skyrim's harsher climate into a gameplay factor. But that description doesn't do it justice. Frostfall adds several new mechanics to the game, all revolving around your exposure to the cold. Wearing nocturnal skimpy clothes isn't going to cut it anymore, as you'll need to keep as warm as possible to survive. You can even eat warm foods and set up campfires with tents for those longer adventures. Once the cold gets to you, however, you'll start to slowly freeze to death as you go from cold to frostbitten and finally frozen. It's a great mod that turns the static weather into a gameplay mechanic. With Aedra and Daedra playing such a key role in the Elder Scrolls lore, it's a shame that you can't make the Dragonborn religious. Winter Sun aims to fix this by letting the player become a follower of the Divines. Now you can choose a deity to dedicate your life to. But it's not as easy as picking from a list. You'll have to earn their favor by following their unique tenets and avoiding their taboos. Doing so will make you a stronger devotee, which in turn will give you powerful traits. But with a whopping 50 different deities to choose from, shouldn't be hard to find a god that you like. And if you are hoping to do an evil playthrough, the mod has you covered, with 17 Daedric princes to worship. Hell, the mod even has race-specific gods like Hunding for Redguards and Auriel for Elves. If we're trying to make Skyrim as immersive as possible, then we have to do away with one of the most unimmersive elements of the game: death. In the past, if you wanted to make death as immersive of a feature as possible, then the only option would be some hardcore mod that deleted your save file after your character met their untimely end. But that's boring. Instead, we're going to be using Shadow of Skyrim, a mod that pretty much copied Shadow of Mordor's homework and added the Nemesis system from that game into Skyrim. This means that death becomes a new gameplay mechanic rather than a mere inconvenience. With this mod, you won't actually die anymore. Instead, you'll go unconscious and be left for dead, similar to how death works in Mount and Blade. Where it becomes interesting is that whoever killed you is now your nemesis. This means that not only will they get a random buff to their stats, but you'll also get a pretty harsh debuff which you can only remove by getting revenge on your adversary. It's a really great mod that not only adds depth to the mechanic of death, but also gives players an incentive to go and explore in their quest to hunt down their attempted murderer. Although Skyrim tries its best to have epic high-stakes battles, no fight can feel too worrisome if I can just pause the game, take a nap, get myself a cup of tea, and drink 30 health potions, all while a dungeon boss patiently waits for me to unpause the game. Well, there's a mod to fix that. Skyrim Souls makes all in-game menus play in real time. No longer will your enemies wait for you to decide which armor has better stats or what potion you should use. Now, the only time you'll be safe from the cruelty of Skyrim will be in a tavern or at the Dragonborn's house. Before developers realized that humans have legs, it was pretty common to see first-person games have their player character be an amputee, with the unfortunate fate of being a legless floating torso, and Skyrim was no exception. But thanks to modders, the Dragonborn can finally get a pair of legs. Improved camera not only renders your entire body in first person, allowing you to see every nook and cranny of your character below the neck. You creep. It also makes pretty much every animation that forces you into third person be redone from the point of view of the Dragonborn. This means that crafting potions, smithing, and even riding horses can now be seen from a first-person perspective. Considering that Skyrim is meant to be one of the harshest climates in Tamriel, it's surprising how calm the weather is. I mean, there isn't even the slightest stroke of wind. Well, if you're like me and you've been spoiled by the amazing wind effects from The Witcher 3, then blowing in the wind is the next best thing. It's another simple mod that makes shop signs and lanterns react to the wind realistically, and it finally turns Skyrim into the windy region it was always meant to be. If we're being honest, learning spells in Skyrim makes no sense. Spells are supposed to take a lot of time and concentration to learn, let alone master. So how is it that a level 1 player can learn and cast any spell perfectly within seconds of picking up the book? Immersive spell learning remedies this issue by making your character take notes instead of just magically consuming the spellbook, and only after a few hours of learning the spell can you use it. Your skill in the respective school of magic also plays a factor in the learning process. So, if you're a master of destruction, then learning a new destruction spell will only take a few hours, whereas it would take a novice months to learn the same spell. So, now you'll no longer be able to have an army of Dremora or summon a Daedric bow at the start of the game. This makes for a realistic way of locking players out of the higher level spells without being too harsh. So if you're a magic user, give it a try. The mod is simple, but it's a must-have, as it adds an untapped level of immersion to the game. I don't know about you, but when I open something in real life, it actually moves and, opens. But it seems like Bethesda didn't get the memo, since almost all containers stay static when they're opened. Animated Clutter solves this issue by adding opening and closing animations to knapsacks, coffins, beehives, and every other container that previously had no animations. The mod may sound insignificant, but considering how much time we spend looting various containers in Skyrim, I think it's a worthy addition to the load order. Considering that the Dragonborn is bombarded with a new world-ending crisis every day, it's strange how all of the villains are happy to wait patiently for the Dragonborn to come and stop them. End Times makes this no longer the case. End Times adds a timer to your save file that gives you only a short window to defeat Alduin, lest he destroys the world and your save file with it. It's a simple mod, but it gives the main questline some much-needed urgency, which its lack of has been the butt of many Skyrim jokes in the past. And before you ask, yes, there is a timer for the Dawnguard questline too.
Subscribe to Fall Damage, you milk drinker.